Is the Nintendo Switch 2 worth your hard-earned money, and is it an actual improvement? We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more on this edition of Man Cave Technology. Well, there's definitely something I haven't said in a while. It's been about 6 years since I made a video, but the Switch 2 has brought me out of retirement. And so we're going to be making videos again. So if you just stumbled on this, we'd love for you to subscribe. And if you have been around forever and you're thinking, what happened to this guy? Well, here I am. So hey, we're going to cut to the chase. Today's video, I hope to bring you some insights after 10 days with the Switch that maybe some other videos haven't. And so here's some sections if you want to skip ahead, but basically we're going to take a look at the actual construction of this thing and compare its build. We're going to look at the kickstand. We're going to look at the Joy-Cons and compare them. We're going to look at the screen quality and compare that to the OLED. And then most importantly, I'm going to play some games and show you some of the improvements and some of the reasons why this may or may not be a great buy for you. And then finally, I'll give my conclusion. So if you do skip on to the end, enjoy that as well. But I hope you're here for the ride because it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so let's get started with the hardware. We're going to take a look at the build. We'll get to the Joy-Cons in a minute. But basically, this is a very strong build out of the gate for Nintendo. I wouldn't expect anything less after this many years. But when you look at things like the Lenovo Go, the Steam Deck, the previous Switch, some of the different handhelds out there, this is a very sleek form factor. This is super easy to slide into a bag and not even know it's there. Yes, some of those other devices with the thicker grips are going to probably be a little more ergonomic, but I think Nintendo made a great compromise and they did improve the feel, and just especially with my big hands, this feels a lot better than some of the other devices and the previous Nintendo Switch. It's a very solid build. I think that the kickstand is, you're going to look at this compared to the original Switch and go, wow, that's way better. If you had a Switch OLED, they made a very hefty kickstand on the Switch OLED. And so my understanding from playing the $10 game that Nintendo sells you, we'll talk about in a minute, is that basically they needed that room for batteries and other things. So they basically did this sort of carved out stand. It does have a little bit of give to it, but I think if you treat it right, it's going to be fine. And just like the OLED, I love the fact that this thing can bend back pretty far. So if you wanted to take the Joy-Cons off and you wanted to stand and play and sort of have that at an angle, that's something that you can do with absolutely no problem. And so I think that that is pretty cool. That also really makes this device great for watching videos or doing other things. The YouTube app doesn't work on the Switch 2 yet, but other than that, most things do work. And so I think that that's going to be an improvement. All right, so let's talk about the Joy-Cons. So they have dramatically improved the Joy-Cons. In the previous Switch, we sort of got stuck with this mechanical hook in with a button that pulls out. And I've seen some people get some of these in weird predicaments before, sticking the wrong thing in the wrong place. But I think that this system has worked, but it has been wobbly. Some of you have experienced the wobble that you can have with that. I think on the new Switch, they really nailed it. These Joy-Cons are bigger. They feel a little bit better. The ZR and ZL buttons are bigger and they just kind of help you grip it. And I think that that's a big win. The attachment using the magnets, that's how Nintendo originally wanted to do the Switch, and they had to go with this sort of more mechanical version. This is the winning design here. It's very easy to just pop the button on the back, pull these suckers off, and then when you want to put it back on, it literally just snaps into place, which is what I think that they had wished they could have done on the first version, but they were not able to do that, and so now we have it. Will these give a little bit and bend a little bit? Sure, they will do that. Not as bad as the original Switch, and I'm sure if you pull hard enough, you can pull it off. It's a magnet, but I think that this is a improved ergonomics. I think that combined with the big screen, this feels better to hold in your hands. And I think that the Joy-Cons are a much more solid product, especially in those situations where you're going to be playing a game and you're going to actually be using the Joy-Cons. I haven't felt that compelled to play games with the Joy-Cons as sort of a controller. in my hand while the Switch sits somewhere, but I think I feel more compelled to do that with this version of the Switch. And then in a case where you don't have Pro controllers or other things and you need to use the Joy-Cons as a single controller for Mario Party or Mario Kart, they just feel much more significant and much better in your hand. Also, I think that these are a major improvement when you have a look at how these just now kind of snap on, and it's not a weird thing. On the original Switch, I put these probably on the wrong way maybe 15, 20 times and then had to try to pull it off. You would think I would be smarter than that. But on the Switch 2, these just basically snap in place. And then especially for that mouse mode, which we'll take a look at here in a bit, this is a very valuable piece on here. It also gives it some more heft, and especially when you are just using it as a single controller. And then of course we remember going back to the Wii, people were throwing controllers through TV. So if you are playing sports or something like that and you have that 120-inch brand new TV that you don't want to bang this thing through, then it's great to have this on the Joy-Con. All right, now we're going to take a look at the screens, and I'm going to compare this with the OLED, and that brings up one other physical thing. On the OLED here, I ran out of power, so I'm having to plug it in. The only problem is as I'm plugging it in, it is difficult to properly use the kickstand, and that is one of the benefits of the Nintendo Switch 2. It does have a USB-C port on the top and on the bottom, so that makes it easier to find a place that you can use to plug in, especially if you're playing with this thing in your lap. You typically want to use that top port so that the cable is not bumping up against you. All right, so even though I have this Nintendo Switch OLED kind of held up by this powered cord, I want to talk a little bit about these two screens. And I want to talk about OLED in general because this has been a huge debate. So first off, let me start by saying that I love OLED. I've been an early adopter of OLED. I have had an OLED TV in my living room for a long time. I've had an OLED as my primary computer display at home for a couple of years. And obviously, I usually have the latest iPhone, and they have been using OLED. I have the latest iPad with OLED, and I really love the deep, rich blacks of OLED. Now, there are some problems with OLED. For instance, my phone, you take it out into the heat, and I don't even live in a climate that gets super hot, but you get it out into the heat and the sun, and the phone has to start throttling down that OLED because it's producing heat and it can't maintain that brightness level. And so there are some things like that. But as far as the Nintendo Switch, I personally love the fact that the OLED model exists, and I loved how clean the blacks are, because in OLED, since each area is producing, each individual pixel is producing light or not producing light, you can get a perfect black. And when you come to other technologies, even when you have local dimming and you try to really nail it down, even with some of Apple's extreme work in that area, it still just doesn't get as perfect as OLED. Now, the Nintendo Switch OLED has been a great device, but I will say that I've personally, I don't know if this is just my screen or if this is the experience of others, but I have found that some of the scenes, some of the things are a little too dark, some of the colors are a little too saturated, and there are some things that I just thought did not look as good on that OLED screen as on other OLED screens that I have. Having said that, the new Nintendo Switch does not use an OLED screen. In the daytime, I think it looks better. I think that if you're playing under light, this screen has a better resolution, obviously. It looks better in general, it's brighter, it's more vibrant, it's able to do a higher frame rate, and so I think that that is a great piece and a great improvement. The main place that you're going to notice this is going to be playing in the dark or playing at night, and when you look at something that is black, it's not going to be 100% black. So if you're looking at a black screen, this has the word Nintendo across it, that Nintendo is going to be white, and the black is going to just be a little gray. You know what I'm talking about. As where on the OLED, it would be completely black. I think Nintendo made several decisions here that led them to not start with an OLED. Some of that probably is the cost factor and also some of the different technological pieces they wanted to do. Will there probably be an OLED version in the future? I would assume so, yes. They also may be some different LED, LCD technologies that they end up using. But I would say unless you are playing your Switch for the purest of blacks, which I'm not. That's, you know, when I'm watching a movie, that's one thing, but the things that I'm doing on the Switch, so even though I'm very picky about that, I actually really enjoy the LCD screen on this, and I think that it is fine. All right, so let's take a look at this section, and we're gonna really put something I was saying earlier to the test. Normally I use a Pro controller. I didn't bring that with me, so I am going to be using these as sort of my primary controller, like a Pro controller while we're docked, but bear with me if I mess something up. But basically, first off, the interface here, let's just talk about that before we get into the games. I feel like is vastly improved. Things are much faster, especially the Nintendo eShop. The Nintendo eShop was a disaster, in my opinion, on the original Switch. It took forever to load something up. This eShop is quick, it is fast, it's easy to get into. Once you're into it and you're looking at things, if you wanted to play a video or learn something, it's very quick. Everything loads fast, and it is much improved. I pretty much kind of dreaded the eShop on the old Nintendo Switch. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the games, and we'll start with Mario Kart World, which there's been a lot said about this, so we're only gonna very briefly look at it, but we have spent quite a bit of time in here. I think that it is a fun improvement over the previous Mario Kart. I think that the previous Mario Kart is great, and I plan to play that a ton, but there are some pretty cool things in here. So one of those is basically, like right now, I joined a online game, and I have the ability to free roam while I'm waiting, but that went really quick. Typically it's been taking more like a couple of minutes before you are able to go. And then here we're just voting on which course we want to run and where we want to go. And once again, while we are waiting, I am able to play and drive around, and so I just think that things like that are a lot of fun and sort of make the experience more exciting. Okay, so one of the things that I really have enjoyed about this as we kick off this race is I feel like there's a great variety, even though we're going to be, you know, limited to courses compared to all of the courses that came out in the previous Mario Kart. I think there's still great variety here in the fact that you have the weather systems and different things going on. Night and day, those make some difference and bring some excitement. We have this rolling start that's sort of a fun piece. And then, you know, this is with real people. And so I always like how the AI typically drives a little more normal, and real people are erratic. And so all of these people are being pretty crazy, and that's the thing here. You can have some pretty big mass chaos. That's how I think I would describe Mario Kart World. There's a lot of the things that you know and love, but then they just all get compounded, and it makes for a pretty chaotic experience, especially when you are playing with all of these real people who are doing wild stuff. They always try to get the double there, and sometimes will get in my way, and I don't appreciate that. But yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of gameplay here. There's a lot of things to do. All right, so we are going into the last lap here of my game, and thought I'd just show you a little bit more of this, just because, once again, very chaotic. But I think some of the fun things here are there's like a lot more coins on the ground, and so the coins have not been something I've super been into. I know, you know, you get more and go faster, the general concept there. But there is just a lot more in this version of the game, and I think that that is a lot of fun. But yeah, these courses are incredible, and we're gonna finish out here at 16th place. So not that good, but you know, what do you expect? I do the best I can. So as I sort of mentioned earlier, the free roam, it is what it is. It can be a lot of fun, I think, especially if you had some people in here. Sadly, you cannot do a split screen free roam. Maybe that's something that Nintendo will bring. But basically, it is fun just to kind of look around. There's a decent amount of P-Switch games, and then there's just things that you can do. And so it's really kind of cool. I think that Mario Kart is what it is. It can be, if you're just one person playing a few times, you may get bored with it. But if you have friends and family who you play with, then it can be a ton of fun. So I'm going to very quickly talk about this welcome tour. This is a little controversial because Nintendo made people pay for it, and this really feels like something that should have just come with the Switch. It has quizzes in it, it teaches you about the hardware, but it ultimately just feels like one of those things that should have come with it for free. I thought that maybe after there was a little bit of online backlash, they would have changed their mind. But they didn't. And so basically, in this game, you are walking around on the controller, trying different things and looking around. And sort of the main thing to see here, in my opinion, is this is a great chance to see how mouse mode works. All right, so basically, when you have the Joy-Con configured like this becomes your click button, and this actually is a really good mouse. And so I think this is a great demo. I think there will be interesting things that come out of here, and so, but once again, trying to play and talk, I really don't do a good job at all. But essentially, in this little sort of demo game, the goal here is to not get hit by the spiked balls. You can move up, you can move down, you can move all around, and it really helps you to sort of see, you know, what a game that's designed specifically for mouse mode could look like. But of course, those of you who do PC gaming and other things, you know that there's a lot of cool things that can be done with the mouse. And so I think that it'll be interesting to see how people adapt and change some of the games or allow games that take a mouse to work on here. But the mouse mode is a pretty cool thing, and that's just sort of a bonus feature to have. Basically, this game has some quizzes, it has some demo. I don't even know that I would call it a game. Like, one of the things is looking at frame rate. It really is just a big ad for Nintendo, so I'm really shocked. Some of the stuff that I actually didn't know about the Nintendo Switch, I learned by playing the game. But why would you not just want to give this to people and let them play it? And so I would say that unless you're really into this thing, probably not worth your 10 bucks. But if you do want to learn more about it and 10 bucks doesn't mean that much to you, or you just think, hey, this would be fun, then go ahead and do it. It is kind of fun sliding around on the glass screen. So now we're going to jump into Cyberpunk. And the reason that I want to show you this is because I think this is really fascinating. I remember when this first came out, and many of you do, it was a disaster. It was very unoptimized. It performed terribly on many systems. And so I think this is a testament both to the hardware of the Nintendo Switch as well as the optimization. Okay, so I'm sort of stuck in a portion of the game here that is indoors and not that exciting, but I'll show you some of the graphics and things from the larger portion of the world. And once again, it's pretty amazing that they got this running this good. I think that it looks great, and I think that it is something that really opens up a lot of possibilities for other games that we could see on here. I would love to see the high-res version of Fallout. I think there's just a lot of other things that could be on here. Another game that we'll take a look at real quick is Hogwarts Legacy. This is a game that, once again, I also think is really cool. They put a decent amount of effort into revamping this for the Nintendo Switch 2. And so, once again, on the original Nintendo Switch, I felt like some of these games, just the quality was so poor graphically that unless the Nintendo Switch was the only thing that you had, you would not want to play it on the Nintendo Switch, even though it was portable and you could move it wherever you wanted to. However, now with the Nintendo Switch 2, I think that it has enough power and they did enough optimizations and things are cool enough with these games that this would be my preferred place to play it. Could I probably get a little bit of better resolution out of playing this on my Xbox or definitely on my PC? Sure. But this is easy to take places with me. This is easy to do what I need to do with it, and it works really, really well. So let's hop over into Zelda. And what's really cool is both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have received Switch 2 updates. And so I think it breathes new life into these games. These are great games. And the quality is phenomenal. Now, these are meant to have a certain look to them, but even with that certain look on the original Nintendo Switch, there were just things that I thought, you know, you can tell this is an aged console and it's struggling here. I think here on the Nintendo Switch 2, like, this looks great to me. I am having fun running around and looking at stuff, and I started a new file and I have not gotten very far at all. But I think that just looking at things, it looks phenomenal, and it makes me want to pick up and play these games again. And so games that I already paid for, because I'm a Nintendo Switch online user, I was able to get both of these upgrades for free. But if you're not, they're only $10 each, and it once again just breathes new life into games that you have previously played. And I want to go back and play these games over again. Probably wouldn't do that on my actual Nintendo Switch, but on the Nintendo Switch 2 with the improvements, it just seems like a lot of fun. It makes me want to go in here and play these games again and do better than jumping off of cliffs without the hang glider, which I don't have yet because I just restarted. All right, so Animal Crossing. This is a game that got a patch to run on the Nintendo Switch, just to Switch 2 to make a few things improved. But what's fascinating is even without an official big Nintendo Switch 2 version, this game is so much better. So some of the big benefits here are loading time. It takes forever to get into this game. And if you've played the game, even though it took a minute here, you see that that was way faster. Especially when you go in and out of places, that has improved. That's a much faster thing to do. And so once again, it breathes new life into Animal Crossing's New Horizons. I really hope that there will be a new Animal Crossing, and I'm sure that there will be at some point. This game was so popular, especially during the pandemic, and I haven't really played it much since then. That's why my character has a mask on their face, because that was kind of funny back then. But once again, just the speed, and please don't judge my island. Yeah, there's weird things. I don't know why. I kind of ran out of room and just started putting things places. But I used to dread going into some of these buildings and some of the load times. But as you can see, I'm just like walking in here and we're just gonna waltz downstairs, and things just take a hot second and you're there. And that is much improved compared to the amount of time and wait time with the original Switch, which almost made some of these things, going in buildings and doing things like that, just not much fun, and just took forever. And so now that this is faster, this makes Animal Crossing something that I want to visit and play again, and I'm really looking forward to spending some more time in there. All right, Super Mario Odyssey. This is another game that got a Switch 2 update. It's a update that makes the graphics look better and makes things work. It's kind of fascinating. They didn't come in and necessarily change the look of the Joycons and that part that you just saw. Even when it starts, it still says Nintendo Switch, which ends up being a little pixelated when you look at it on here. But then once you get into the game, the quality of the game is terrific. And wow, I'll tell you what, this really has a breath of new life for me. So I loved Mario Odyssey. I completely forgot about a lot of it. And now that I'm playing it here on the Switch 2, I'm enjoying just the speed. I'm enjoying the graphics. And this really is a fun game. And so once again, I feel like this is an example of a game that new life has been brought to, and that just is a lot of fun on the Nintendo Switch 2. I think the graphics look great, the resolution looks great, and it is once again a game that I previously played. It's a game that I have completed, but it's a game that I restarted because I want to kind of enjoy it here on the Switch 2 and see all the things that are there. And then, to be honest with you, literally I forgot like most of this game. So a lot of the stuff as I'm doing it, I'm like, wow, I forgot about that. I forgot about an invisible ledge with birds on it. I saw the birds and I thought, man, that must be some kind of Nintendo Switch 2 glitch, if you know what I'm talking about, where there are birds on like an invisible platform so that you know that you could jump on that. That confused me, but now that I'm back in the game here, I'm gonna be doing stuff and really enjoy it. So I think that Mario Odyssey, a game that this brings some new life to. Splatoon 3 is something else that I think that really kind of shows off the Switch here, and is cool that Nintendo just kind of like, we didn't hear a whole lot about it, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we have a new version for the Nintendo Switch 3, and then they're also doing a spin-off game that they just announced. But basically, once again, this breathes new life. This game isn't that old. And so I was really happy to see that it was just a free update, that all of a sudden for the Switch 3, it's going to have the better graphics, it's going to run better, but they still have it where you can basically play with anyone that's on the original Switch. And so I think that that is a pretty cool thing. All right, so here we are headed into a match, and I'm maybe not the greatest at this, but once again, really cool, new life into this game. This one's just kind of a fun one because you can just kind of hop in and just get started. Even if your skill level is low like mine, you probably don't want to fall in the water like that, but you know, there's cool stuff you can do. I always like this big O paint roller just because when I was a kid, I felt like I always wanted to do this, and my dad would be like, no, you can't do that, and I would be like, well, please, and now I can do it. I always have the philosophy that if you don't 100% get your home base covered, you're kind of wasting away a little bit of your percentage there, so I always like doing that. But basically, this game looks wonderful here on the Nintendo Switch 2. And I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. One of the other things that I'll mention, just sort of while I'm playing this, is that I think that the Nintendo Switch 2, it loads in and out of games way faster. And so especially when I'm comparing it to things like the original Nintendo Switch, when I'm comparing it to things like my Steam Deck, the fact that I can get in and out of games super fast is great because I'm very ADD. And so I'll sort of play something and then I'll be like, I want to play something else. And a lot of times with the Switch 2 or with the original Switch, I feel like I'd be like, but do I want to wait that long for Animal Crossing to load if I just want to check in on my island or do something like that? But I think that with the Nintendo Switch 2, we're talking about getting in and out of games super fast, so I zip along. Now, obviously, the Xbox Series X does a great job with that game pausing and getting back in. And this is not exactly that. You're still completely exiting the game and getting back into the game, but it is a vast improvement in terms of the load times. All right, so we are nearing here the end of this game. Once again, I'm falling in the water, clearly showing that I cannot play and talk and have no clue what I'm doing. I don't know how great my team is doing here. But once again, this just looks great on the Nintendo Switch 2. This is a fun game, especially if you're just looking to kill a few minutes or want to just do a quick online player before you go to bed. And so I think that this brings incredible value, that games that I already purchased for the Switch are now improved for the Switch 2. So here we go, we're coming into the end here. I will do one final effort oh wow, actually got someone there. And are we going to win? Are we going to lose? Let's see. Yeah, that's not looking too hot for us. And we did not completely win that game by any stretch of the imagination. But once again, that's one of the fun things about the Nintendo games. They're just fun to play. All right, so we can't forget about the fact that this does have the GameCube emulation on it. Now, Nintendo really has been dragging this stuff out. I feel like they could have done a lot of this earlier, but now we have this. I fully expect that we'll see the Wii on the Nintendo Switch. There are some games that, you know, a lot of those games kind of transverse through time and we have them still, but I think that we will see that. And for those of you who grew up playing the GameCube, I think that you'll have a lot of fun with this, and it'll be fun to see as they bring some of these games to the Nintendo Switch 2. It's just another value add. You have all of the other consoles already in here, the SNES, which is what I grew up mostly playing, and it's just a lot of fun to have these in here. Okay, so I want to show you real quick Hot Wheels because basically this is an example of a game that on Switch 1, the graphics weren't really that great, actually distracting to me compared to on the Xbox. And then on the Switch 2, they have not made any updates. And so I wanted to look at it to see, hey, does this look better? Does this work better? And it looks the same, which in my opinion is not great. And so even though this game is a lot of fun, some of the graphic fidelity doesn't look good. Now, I may sound like a real graphic snob right now with the way that I'm talking about a Hot Wheels game. But just some of the things that if you kind of look at the cars and you look at the quality, you look at the draw distance, there's usually some things that are popping in, and it just is not as clean and crisp and clear by any measure as it is on the Xbox. But this is a game that, once again, if the developer will do an update for, then it could look terrific on here because I play this on the Xbox and it looks great on the Xbox. And so I think that that'll be one of the things that will be interesting, will be to see which games just get an update, which games never get an update, and which games get a paid update. But what I do appreciate for Nintendo is that we can still play all of these games, and I think that that was a smooth move and really a necessary move to avoid any problems with people adopting this console. So let's bring this thing in for a landing and a conclusion. Should you spend your hard-earned money on the Nintendo Switch 2? I would say it's really up to you and your preferences. If you have an original Nintendo Switch and you loved it and played it, and then maybe you burned out a little bit, there is new life with the Nintendo Switch 2. Some of the games that you previously played and have forgotten about, they have new life. They're faster, they're better, they look better, and there's going to be a lot of development and a lot of games and a lot of things coming to this. Just the fact that things like Cyberpunk can run beautifully on this hardware, I think that we'll be seeing more and more games that you would have never associated with running on a Nintendo Switch that'll be coming to the Nintendo Switch. So I think when you combine the form factor and all of that, that this is a great product. Now, some of you really like things like the Steam Deck and Lenovo Go and some of these different products, and I've used those as well. And I think those are great products. You can really tweak things, you can do things, but if you just want a grab and go solution that works, Nintendo is your best option here. I think that especially if you have kids or families or friends, or if you just like to do social gaming, Mario Kart, some of the things that you can do here are a lot of fun with the split screen. And then the fact that they have all of the online components available. That's something we didn't even really dive into today, but that is a big feature of the Nintendo Switch. That's not personally something that I use a whole lot of. I guess if we get stuck in another pandemic, which is when I think they introduced all of this kind of in their timeline, they thought, hey, you know, let's put this in here. I think that it would have been great to have those features during the great pandemic, but going forward, I think that those will be fun for some people as well. So once again, I think you have to set your expectations. This is not an OLED screen, but this is a better screen than the Nintendo Switch. And in my opinion, it's a better screen than the OLED, even though I really want those deep blacks. Is it a better rendering, higher resolution, better frame rate? Yes, everything looks better on this as long as it's been optimized for it. In the grand scheme of things, if I was going to be a hardcore gamer and I only could get one system, I would probably get the Xbox or PlayStations because that's where you plug it into the wall and it sucks a lot of power. It's a big hefty thing, but it does all of those games that you're going to want to do. But if you want something that's fun, that's portable, that's really a great all-in-one system, I think the Nintendo Switch 2 is a great system. I paid for this myself and we're going to enjoy it and my family will use it. And I think that it is a lot of fun. So let me know in the comments what other types of things you would like to know, what's maybe holding you back or pushing you forward with getting a Nintendo Switch. And we will see you on another episode of Man Cave Technology.